Hi, it's Mark from Top Local. We're here with Bernie Pawlik, Pawlik Automotive in Vancouver, and Vancouver's best auto service experience. 21-time winners of best auto repair in Vancouver as voted by their customers. And we're talking cars. How you doing, Bernie?
Doing very well.
So we're going to talk about Toyota Prius. What kind of services do Toyota Prius need?
Yeah, well, there's a variety of services they do need. I mean, let's talk just generally about the reliability of the vehicle overall first. You know, my first thought when the Prius came out a couple of decades ago now is, oh my God, this is way too complicated. You know, you're not only have an internal combustion engine to deal with, but all the electric drivetrain, batteries, inverters, all the bits and pieces that make it work. But you know, 2 decades later, it's turned out to be one of the most reliable vehicles on the road. You look at taxi cab fleets 20 years ago, they were all largely, American cars. Now they're all mostly Toyota Priuses or, Camrys, that kind of thing. So it's proven to be very reliable, a huge cost reduction vehicle, when operated, especially for a long range type of heavy use vehicle.
So no car is perfect. What goes wrong with them?
So, yeah, I mean, Toyotas are legendary for reliability, but there are things that do go wrong with these vehicles. I mean, overall, the internal combustion engines are pretty reliable. I mean, some of them do develop some oil consumption issues over time. And I'm just kind of painting the Prius with a broad brush because there's 4 generations of Prius. So there's we go back, the first generation goes up to about 03, and from 03 to 09, there's second generation, which is where the Prius really sold a lot of cars. Generation 3, 09 up to about 2015, and then 2015 and newer is the latest generation. Most of the vehicles we see are in generation 2 and 3, so that's where we have most of our experience with these cars. Anyways, yeah, so what goes wrong? I mean, water pumps fail. That seems to be a pretty common issue in a lot of Toyota engines, and there are electric water pumps on certain models, different generations. There's failures with those. There are water control valves. I mean, there are a few failures with the drive motors, the electric drive motors, inverters. Batteries do eventually wear out, but they've all proven to be pretty reliable, and we don't repair a lot of those more major components, which is a good thing because they are very expensive to repair and do after time sort of require some thinking as to whether it's worth the cost. But for the most part, they are. I mean, if you've taken good care of it, it's a good, reliable car.
So what about routine maintenance items?
So, yeah, so of course it's an internal combustion engine vehicle and it needs oil changes on a routine basis. Again, don't stretch your oil change intervals out because these are very high-tech engines. They need their oil changed. They need clean oil in there. There's transmission. The transmission does need a fluid change every once in a while. There's coolant, of course, brake fluid. Things like power steering fluid are eliminated because it's an electric power steering system, so there's one less fluid. But routine inspections are important on any vehicle as time goes by. Of course, suspension components wear, the brakes need to be looked at. Again, they do last a long time, but things do need to be looked at just to be inspected. Actually, one repair item that I will mention that is frequent is the 12-volt batteries do go bad quite a lot, and they cause all sorts of interesting issues in terms of starting the vehicle. So that's another area that, again, testing that battery on a routine basis is an important thing to keep your car reliable.
So a Prius has 2 different battery systems.
It does. It has a high voltage battery system, and then it has the traditional 12-volt battery system. And that 12-volt battery system keeps all the lights, the radio, and it actually allows the vehicle to start as well. So, the starting functions can't happen without a proper 12-volt battery. That allows the contactors to close and allows the battery and energy to flow into the motors. So it's a very critical part of the vehicle. And, you may not notice it's bad like you would in a traditional car, because on a traditional vehicle, when your battery is bad, the starter might be like, it won't start. But on a Prius, if the battery is weak, it'll still keep starting, but then a number of quirky issues may show up. So testing it is a good thing to do on a routine basis.
So we also mentioned brakes there. What's hybrids use, or some of them definitely use regenerative braking. So that recharges the battery. How do the brakes last on a Prius?
Well, the brake, yes, as you mentioned, it has regenerative braking. That's one of the best things about a hybrid is the energy of braking, which is wasted on every vehicle other than a hybrid or an electric car, is the energy is recaptured. The drive motors turn into generators, and they send the energy back into the battery, which is why a hybrid really gets way better mileage than a conventional non-hybrid type of vehicle. Interestingly enough, if you're just driving straight down the highway and you don't use the brakes at all, a hybrid really doesn't have a lot of advantage. But when you're going down a hill or normal sort of city type of driving, which is what most people do. That's where the advantage comes in. Anyways, the regenerative braking system is really very reliable because it uses the drive motors and the batteries. One of the advantages of a hybrid is the normal service brakes, the brakes at the wheel are used very little. In a panic stop, of course, they're used primarily, but in any other sort of regular braking stop, they barely get used, so they can last a long time. Taxis, the traditional taxi cab non-hybrid, they may have changed their brake pads every month or two, whereas on a hybrid, a lot of times they'll last a year. So that's a huge savings for a taxi, not only in dollars, but in terms of downtime, and because the car can keep going, doesn't need the service. But anyway, for your average driver, the brakes should be serviced every once in a while, probably around our climate in Vancouver, every couple of years. A good idea to do a brake service, take the brakes apart, clean, lubricate everything, remove corrosion from the brake pad sliders. In more hostile climates like Eastern Canada and the US, where road salt is poured on the road 6 months of the year, things like brake rotors will probably wear out just from rusting out because it's a bare metal surface. But also again, the pad sliders are subject to more corrosion. So an annual brake service in that kind of climate is probably more valuable. Also, of course, brake fluid needs to be flushed. Brake systems in these are actually the hydraulic system is very complicated compared to a regular car, because as you push the brake pedal, you're actually actuating. It's not just pushing on the brakes as it would normally do in most vehicles, pushing fluid out to the wheels. It's actually actuating electronic valves to, first of all, do the regenerative braking. Then if it needs fluid sent to the wheels, then it'll actuate, basically the ABS unit. So there's a lot more complexity. So flushing the brake fluid, again, like in most climates, every 2 years is really critical to keep things functioning, flowing, and keep your repair costs down.
So pretty much a basic set of normal internal combustion engine car maintenance items.
Exactly. I mean, things are a little different. I mean, transmission fluid, the automatic, it has a transmission, but it's different than a traditional automatic transmission. It has some gears, but very little, mostly motors. So it doesn't, and it's cooled sort of internally with a cooling, with its own separate liquid cooling system. So there, fluid does need to be changed, but it, for maybe different reasons than you would in an traditional automatic transmission. But nonetheless, it's got most of the things that need to be done on a routine basis, but overall less expensive maintenance than you need to do on a traditional internal combustion car.
Any further thoughts on the Toyota Prius?
Overall, it's a great car. I mean, my impression just driving in them is that they are kind of a cheap feeling car, and they're kind of noisy inside. And I think where the Prius is kind of Toyota's entry level model, and they do a fantastic job. I think they've poured all their money into the drivetrain and made it reliable, and that's really the most important part of any vehicle, is keep that reliable. If you're looking for a little more upscale drive, there's a Camry, Lexus has hybrids. They all use the basic same type of system and same level of reliability. So if you're looking for something a little more upscale, and you can always go with those, and you'll have the same level of reliability, and they need the same kind of services.
So there you go. If you need service for your Prius in Vancouver, the guys to call are Pawlik Automotive. You can reach them at 604-327-7112 to book your appointment. You got to call and book ahead because they're busy. Check out the website, pawlikautomotive.com. Over 600 articles on there on all makes and models and types of repairs. Over 350 videos on our YouTube channel, Pawlik Auto Repair. And of course, thanks so much for listening and watching the podcast. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Bernie.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for watching.